Arrested at a Moscow airport in February, she admitted to bringing less than a gram of medicinal cannabis into the country, but said she never intended to break any law.
Good morning, everybody. We are following breaking news at this hour out of Russia, nearly 10 months after her arrest and incarceration there. WNBA star Brittney Griner is headed home.
Yeah, breaking and welcome news. Russia has agreed to a prisoner swap with the U.S. We're going to go straight to NBC's chief foreign affairs correspondent, Andrea Mitchell. She has these breaking details.
What the? America, what are you doing? This is a terrible deal.
Oh yeah, Didi got a podcast.
Man, welcome back to another episode of the Ruling Class Podcast. And of course, I'm your host, Didi, back up in this witch. What another video. And if you're new to the show, please know your boy is thirsty to grow. And to drink some of this water. You can help me out by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. But don't worry, I'm going to give you a sec to do that to help me out. I appreciate you. So look, before we even get into the video, because there's a lot I have to say about this whole Brittney Griner situation. But before we get into the video, I just want to say I apologize for the delay. It's been like a week since over a week since I posted my last video. I've had a lot of stuff going on in my personal life, but I'm back, back and better than ever with my Arkansas shirt on. Don't know if y'all can see that, but I do live in Arkansas, so I thought it was creative to wear this shirt or whatever. And also, I've listened. I've seen your comments over the past 2 months. A lot of you have been suggesting that I start a second page or start a Patreon. I'm not ready yet to start a Patreon, but I have officially created my second page. I know a lot of the videos that I do and a lot of the topics that I cover, like anti-Semitism and homosexuality and the LGBTQ plus community. And I talk about these really sensitive topics, and I know a lot of you feel like y'all like my videos, but y'all feel like it's going to be taken down, or my channel is going to be taken down, or receive some strikes because of the videos that I make and giving my opinion on certain situations. So I'm listening. So I officially have a second page. It's called Didi Got a Podcast 2, or Didi Got a Podcast second channel. So please go and subscribe to that channel just in case something does happen to this page. I would really appreciate it. All right, without further ado, let's get into the topic. For those of you who don't know, Brittney Griner, who is a professional basketball player, right? She plays in the WNBA, which is the women's league, right? For those of you who don't know, she was arrested earlier this year for being detained on her way to Russia, right? They found some cannabis oil in her luggage bag, and she was detained and then later arrested. And then she was sentenced many months later to 9 years in jail, right? So I'll be the first to tell you, yes, I believe that 9 years for any type of weed and marijuana, cannabis, oil, I think that's absurd. I think that's ridiculous. I don't think anybody should receive that. That grows from the earth, is natural, you know what I mean? But nonetheless, that's what happened. And it was just announced, I believe either this morning or late yesterday, that Brittney Griner has officially been released. They did a prisoner swap between her for this guy named Victor Bout, but before we get into that, let's check out the video before I give y'all my perspective on the situation.
Good morning, everybody. We are following breaking news at this hour out of Russia, nearly 10 months after her arrest and incarceration there. WNBA star Brittney Griner is headed home.
Yeah, breaking and welcome news. Russia has agreed to a prisoner swap with the U.S. We're going to go straight to NBC's chief foreign affairs correspondent, Andrea Mitchell. She has these breaking details. Andrea, what can you tell us?
Good morning, Savannah and Hoda. Well, according to a senior administration official, Brittney Griner is free after 294 days in Russian captivity, the last month spent in one of Russia's notoriously harsh penal colonies. She was traded for Russian arms dealer Victor Bout, who Vladimir Putin has been trying to get back, and who had served 11 years of a 25-year sentence in the U.S. President Biden signed off on the trade, even though it meant leaving another American businessman, Paul Whelan, behind bars in Russia. Over the weekend, Secretary of State Antony Blinken saying the U.S. has been actively engaged in discussions with Russia about a possible prisoner swap to free Brittney Griner and Paul Whelan.
We have to see if the engagements that we've had, the discussions that we have, produce an actual result.
Griner, the 32-year-old WNBA superstar, has spent nearly 10 months in Russian custody. arrested at a Moscow airport in February. She admitted to bringing less than a gram of medicinal cannabis into the country, but said she never intended to break any law. Her plight sparked an outpouring from her family, teammates, and fans.
Okay, that's enough, man. I don't need to see any more of that. All right, so let me get this straight. So you have Brittney Griner, professional basketball player. The reason why she was going to Russia, for those of you who don't know, is the NBA, the WNBA players, the women, professionals don't make as much money as the men professional basketball players, which would make a lot of sense, right? But that's another topic for another day. So what they do is they typically go overseas and play ball to make extra money, which makes sense, right? And I commend them for doing it. So I share this to put this into perspective. This is not Brittney Griner's first time going over to Russia. All right, so let's get that understood. You mean to tell me that Brittney Griner was going somewhere she's already been several times and she don't know about their laws over there, right? Of course she knew, right? What I think happened is that she's done it before. She just hasn't gotten caught because she's a famous basketball player, right? And this time she actually got caught. Now, the reason why I really want to talk about this is because I want to make this video specifically. Anybody can learn from this, but this is a teachable moment, but specifically for so-called black people, because we have Dr. Boyce Watkins. A lot of you may not know who that is, but I respect that man quite a bit. He's a black professor, I believe it is. I believe he's a professional with like 2 or 3 PhDs. He has a pretty popular voice. He's interacted with a lot of celebrities, and his motto is like black first. So he puts the black community first, and he holds us to this high standard and all of this, that, and the third. And I commend him for trying to get a lot of so-called black people to kind of get their stuff together, right? But I heard him say something, and I want to respond to this. He said Brittney Griner was set up. He said people don't realize that Brittney Griner being arrested was a political move. And then I saw somebody in the comment section talking about this was a political move. This was Russia playing chess, not checkers. We're in the early days of World War III and people don't even understand that. Even if that was true, she broke the law. What are you talking about? Even if that was true, the law was the law and she broke it. And they followed the law and proceeded as they would with anybody else. What are you talking about? Why are we having these double standards because she's a celebrity? Why are we having these double standards because what? She a woman? You feel sorry for her intrinsically? Is that what's happening here? What are you talking about, man? See, this is what kills me about so-called black people, bro. Where's the accountability, right? I work at a homeless shelter, and it's the homeless shelter that I used to live at. A lot of you out there may know that I used to be homeless. Well, now I work at the shelter that I used to live at. Okay, something that I noticed when I used to live there many years ago, and something that I've noticed since I've been working there, and something I've noticed over the years that I volunteered at this shelter, is that we're not an emergency shelter. An emergency shelter means like you can walk into the shelter the same day and get a bed, right? Get some food, maybe get somewhere to sleep, somewhere safe for the night. Well, that's not how it works with our shelter, right? We have something called a waiting list, right? It's an actual 2-year program, and you have to get on the waiting list in order to be accepted. And you cannot have certain things in your criminal history or certain things in your background in order to get to the shelter. A lot of people look at us as like a bougie shelter, and they have to spend a lot of time waiting before they get into the shelter. So my point is, they spend all this time trying to get into this shelter, and then it's not until they get into the shelter, we explain the rules to them, they read the handbook, that's a part of the process to move into the shelter, and then you get into the shelter and then start complaining about the very rules that you knew were in place before you moved into the shelter. So what happened when you were sleeping under the bridge? When you were sleeping on your sister's couch? When you were sleeping in your car behind McDonald's parking lot? At that point, you didn't care. You were desperate to get in. But now that you're in the shelter and you've gotten that out of your way, now it's time to complain about the rules that were in place before you got there. My point is, Brittney Griner knew what the rules are. We can all agree that nearly a decade in jail, really any jail time for smoking marijuana or using cannabis oil is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Nonetheless, that's their laws. It's not like that wasn't their law. Brittney Griner was arrested, and then they were like, you know what? This is an American. We can use this as leverage. Let's change our law and then arrest her for that new law. No, it was already set in place. And she still decided to try to sneak that cannabis oil over into Russia. Where's the accountability here? And let me also put something into perspective before a lot of you feel like I'm being too harsh or maybe unforgiving or inconsiderate. No, I'm glad that the woman is out of jail because she shouldn't have to spend that much time. But do you know who they traded her for? Victor Boot. Do you know who this is? Let's go and read who this is exactly. Victor Boot. For those of you who don't know, they made an entire movie about him, by the way. It's called like Lord of War or something like that. When they making entire movies about you, you have some sort of importance. So let's see who this man is. Victor Bout is a Russian arms dealer, right? Let's see. An entrepreneur and former Soviet military translator, he used his multiple companies to smuggle weapons since the collapse of the Soviet Union from Eastern Europe to Africa and the Middle East during the 1990s and early 2000s. Bout gained the nicknames the Merchant of Death and Sanctions Buster after Peter Hain of the British Foreign Office read a report to the United Nations in 2003 on Bout's wide-reaching operations, extensive clientele, and willingness to bypass embargoes. So this is a man who was so dangerous and is responsible for so much death across the United States and the world. The world. This is who they traded for a WNBA player. Now, before y'all say, well, because she's American and they're trying to get her out of jail. Okay. I just want y'all to know this. If it was you that was locked up for marijuana, if it was you that was locked up for cannabis oil, they're not trading Victor Bout for you. Not for you. But they're going to do it for a person who bounces a basketball for a living. Let me put something else into perspective for you. If you think what I'm saying is not accurate or it's not true, literally in the news report, they mentioned how a guy named, I believe is Peter or Paul, it was another American that they was trying to get over here. He stayed. She got to come home. He stayed for Victor Bout. Respectfully, the amount of value in our prison system that this criminal Victor Bout has compared to Brittney Griner, who had less than a gram of cannabis oil, but nonetheless she knew what she was doing. That's not a fair trade. What the heck is America doing? You have to negotiate a little bit better than that. Again, I know I'm going to come off as harsh, but this is ridiculous. I don't know what we're doing here. We don't take accountability, and then we complain about it. You got caught. Now you're mad. Everybody's talking about she was illegally detained and falsely imprisoned. What? It's the law there. Y'all kill me with this, man. Am I off with this? Y'all hop in the comment section and y'all let me know what y'all think. Because this is crazy to me. I'm glad she's home, but I hate that we have to give up something like this in order to get her there. Just watch how they're about to spin this narrative and make this woman sound like a victim. She's not a victim. Until next time, peace.
Oh yeah, Diddy got a podcast.